Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Ask Dr. Dansinger with world-renowned diabetes reversal expert, Dr. Michael Dansinger, who is also the Chief Medical Officer for the Global PAD Association. This is week 2 of our brand new weekly series where you get to ask Dr. Dansinger your burning questions that will help you to live a better quality life through better dietary changes. We have quite a few questions that have come in so far. If you are on YouTube, make sure to like the video, subscribe to our channels because you'll get more content like this. And also it helps spread it a lot further via YouTube. YouTube sees that you're liking and subscribing. They'll kind of push our videos a little bit further so we can help even more people. And also don't forget to click the notification button in case you do want to make sure that these notifications come to your emails every time we have great doctors such as Dr. Dansinger. If you do have Medicare or Medicare Advantage PPO plans, if you do, this is really cool. If you're in Virginia, if you're in Minnesota, if you're in New Hampshire or Massachusetts or New York or Florida, Dr. Danziger is actually covered. And so you could actually have one-on-one diabetes reversal help from him covered by insurance. So definitely check that out. Go to diabetesreversalpartners.com for more information on that. But Dr. Danzinger, what is your topic du jour? What is on your mind this week before we dive into those questions?
Sure. So many people want to eat healthily, but no one has extra money. So how can we be strategic and smart with our money when we're buying healthy food? So I know a lot of people ask me about that and ask you about that, and so that's been one of the questions that's been coming up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the number one question that we got this week was which affordable proteins are best for my arteries?
Great question. Okay, protein's important, and um, protein can be expensive, especially fish, like swordfish. My favorite fish is swordfish. I never buy it. And
And I
uh,
hear that you have to have Brazil nuts anyway with it to balance out the metals or something. That's what my dad's dietitian told him. Make sure you consume Brazil nuts with your swordfish.
so some proteins are for special occasions, fancy cuts of beef, etc. But there are plenty of healthy proteins out there that are affordable. And so one that's often overlooked is tofu. Tofu is inexpensive, it's healthy, it's versatile, and people don't know how to cook it. So, learning how to cook tofu and to use it in its different forms is very helpful to get protein on a budget. And I don't know if I'm not an expert at cooking tofu, but there's a lot of information on the internet. Using an air fryer is one of the most popular and effective ways for tofu. Another great protein source is legumes, all the different types of beans out there. So canned beans are a great source. I happen to love lentils, and I've even seen canned lentils. And so, what I like about the canned is they're ready to go. All you need is the can opener. But even more cost effective is when you buy them dried and they're shelf stable, and you cook them up in advance, and having it's just pennies per serving. Um, Another really good, eggs and egg whites are really affordable, good protein. Low-fat dairy products like cottage cheese and plain yogurt are good. And then canned fish like tuna, for example. Dollar stores have really good deals on canned fish. And so
You
there's lots.
mentioned one time that actually the less expensive white tuna was better than the more expensive one. I think you had mentioned something like that one of these shows.
Yes, that's right. And so at the grocery store, there's usually two kinds of tuna. There's the one that's a little bit more expensive, which is the solid white, which comes from the larger fishes. That's the one my wife insists that she wants. But what many what what for about two-thirds of that price is the chunk light tuna, which has less mercury and is probably a healthier choice. So you can often find that for about $1 a can.
I'm curious back to the tofu versus tempeh. I was told tempeh is even better than tofu, but I don't know.
They're both good. I'm not going to say one's better than the other. It's nice to have different options. And
So one of the things that I do is I marinate my tofu or my tempeh, and I just let it sit for a couple of hours with pomegranate. You've talked about pomegranate juice being incredible antioxidant and great for your arteries. So I decided to add a little bit of pomegranate juice to some coconut aminos, a little bit of sesame oil. I know we're not big in the seed oils. You could replace maybe with a healthier extra virgin olive oil. And then I just, shave in some ginger, fresh ginger in there, some pepper, and some sesame seeds. And then I just saute it, but you could also put it in the air fryer, and it just, I think, adds a little extra something, adds a little extra flavor because when you marinate it ahead of time, it soaks into the tofu a little bit further.
yes, absolutely.
And what frozen fruits and vegetables give you the most anti-inflammatory benefits for the dollar? It's interesting since you mentioned the tofu and the tempeh, you can actually do a stir fry and grab stir fry vegetables and then add the tofu to it and voila. Then with the pomegranate coconut aminos sauce, you have a great meal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the frozen veggies and frozen fruits are superb for cost saving. And so, for example, well, spinach and greens are probably your best bang for your buck when you're
Mhm.
looking to maximize health for the dollar. And so we always have frozen greens in the freezer. And there's so many frozen vegetables that are available. And so carrots,
And
peas, lima beans, mixed versions of those together. I've seen
mhm.
onions, frozen mushrooms, also, carrots, cauliflower, squash. There's probably 20 different types of frozen veggie options in most supermarkets, and they're all good. And so go
Check
for
the
it.
ingredients list though, because I actually found dextrose in a couple of them and some other, preservatives, things like that in there. So just always check to make sure that it's like
Yeah, that
literally just
yeah, that
just
that's
being
a good point.
vegetables.
Mostly there's just the one, yeah, just it's not complicated ingredients, but yeah, if they're adding stuff like, sugar, watch out for that. That's a good point. And then frozen fruit is good. It's
Mm.
usually equal to or less than the cost of fresh fruit, and it keeps longer, of course. So frozen blueberries, I think, are a great example. They're probably going to be a little less expensive per ounce than um, fresh blueberries. I always have berries in the freezer, and my first choice, I enjoy the fresh berries more. So every week I'm getting blueberries and strawberries, but not everyone is going to have that in the budget. And if you want berries, get them frozen.
And you can't get your wild blueberries fresh. So I always try to do a good mix each week of the wild blueberries and
Yeah,
then the regular blueberries. And I add the wild blueberries to my salads. I'll add them to my smoothies as well.
that's a good point. And then also, a lot of people, when they have fresh fruit, but they're not going to be able to use it all, it goes in the freezer. And so bananas are a classic. When those bananas are overripe and you're not going to be able to use them all, you put them in a bag in the freezer. But for almost all fruits, that would work well. And so,
And one thing I wanted to mention when it comes to frozen, so I just stuff my freezer with all kinds of frozen stuff. And you can even get really, much lower cost wild salmon in the freezer as well, and also wild tuna in the freezer. So I try to just stock my freezer, and then it's always available, and you always have a meal available to you. You put some, vegetables out there, you put some, pull out a piece of fish, and voila. I mean, your meal is actually done. Just, mix a little olive oil in there. And I learned a new trick with, if you can get an apricot infused white balsamic vinegar, which I've seen on, or even a Sicilian lemon vinegar that you can get on Amazon, you actually can use that to marinate your salmon, which is actually delicious.
My mouth is
But the
watering.
other thing that I do is I get the wild mushrooms. Um I get onions, and because I get the chopped onions because I'm so lazy and I don't like my eyes burning. So onions, spinach, mushrooms, and I get tofu. So those are all in the freezer.
Mm.
And then I have my fresh tofu, and I saute them all in a thing, and then I crack an egg over it at the end. So once it's all sauteed, I crack an egg and then I mix it together. And out here in California, we call it a Joe's special. If you use hamburger, it's my own healthier version of the Joe's special that you get at Joe's restaurant here in California. And it's always a favorite. You add a little bit of nutmeg. You can always add nutmeg to your spinach to make it just have a little extra flavor. And just always make sure to add that fresh garlic in, because that helps so much as well. I don't know. I'm always, because I have to please, try to cook for my dad too. So I have to make him like everything. So I have to add a lot of flavor for him. Which inexpensive canned, oh, this is a good one that came in. Which inexpensive canned and jarred products can I get, like the dollar store, that can help improve my circulation?
Yeah, it's a great question. So dollar stores vary. When I love to go to the dollar store, I'm always able to find something that I want to buy at a dollar store. And there's different chains, and part of the fun of a dollar store is you don't know what it's going to be, which can be frustrating, but also
Mm.
sometimes you get really, really good deals there. So when it comes to, canned vegetables, you never know what you're gonna get. A lot of them have salt, but whenever you can find the low sodium versions of canned vegetables, that's a win. Otherwise, you just put them in a colander and rinse them off.
Mhm.
So, but what you're looking for is all the ones that we talked about a few minutes ago that are good choices. Um, one so one favorite is sauerkraut or canned cabbage. So I've seen, you can often find cans of sauerkraut at the or jars at the dollar store. I love red cabbage in a jar. So I'm not saying I've seen that at the dollar store, but you never know what you're going to see there, and you want to be open-minded about the options. They almost always have canned greens, and then
Mhm.
of course they usually have good deals on tuna and other canned fish, as we
And I
mentioned.
like canned beets versus jarred beets, because I always find that the Belmonte, it seems, does not have the extra sugar in there, but the Auntie Nellie's, that looks like it's the specialty brand, has sugar in it. And the cans don't seem to have. I mean, I guess because more they're pickled, versus in the cans you just can get the beets, right? So that's, I try to get as many beets as I can in a can.
So yeah, so I love pickled beets. I've seen them in jars and cans, and they do add some sugar to those. But
Oh, they
so
do.
pickled,
Oh, I didn't
the
see it.
pickled ones
Oh, the
often
pickled. If you do it pickled, yeah.
there's Harvard beets, there's pickled beets. They're kind of similar. They usually have some sugar added. So just um, also I've seen beets in the jar or in the can that are just don't have anything added. Maybe just a little bit of salt. So it can go either way. I'm a real beet lover. I had some today in my salad, in fact.
I love that. And what about canned asparagus? So asparagus is supposed to be a top vegetable, right? And I just saw, I didn't even know asparagus came in a can. I usually will get them frozen or fresh, because here in California we just get They have tons of them. So we always get deals, like a big thing of them that's great for 2 or 3 meals for $5. And so we'll usually do it. But I just noticed when I was in the can aisle getting my beets, I'm like, oh my gosh, they have asparagus in a can.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Yes, you can get it canned or frozen, um, and sometimes you can find good deals on it fresh as well. And so that's a winner. That's one of my favorite side dish vegetables with
Mhm.
salmon.
And in our live studio audience, so we have Heinz so far, Dr. Danzinger. You've mentioned all the foods he doesn't like except for the legumes.
Yeah.
I think Heinz, you're a fresh salad vegetable type person, right? I think that he's more about the salads versus
Uh,
any sort of cooked vegetable, which is okay. It's okay. Yep. He says, "Yep, that's it." He's giving you a thumbs up. And I'm not going to use your real name because you have it up different. MAW, do you want to ask your question of Dr. Danzinger? And you can go ahead and unmute. There you go.
So, kind of a two-part question. You were talking about the fruits and berries earlier. Is chocolate hummus okay? Have you all seen the chocolate hummus?
Mm-mm.
So
What's that?
I've never seen that.
HEB in Texas, and I've seen it at Walmart and at Target, has chocolate hummus. And it was
No way.
so
Is it dark chocolate or is
yes,
there
it's
added
good.
sugar to it?
It's good, but I haven't looked at the ingredients, but I figured it's got to be better than chocolate pudding. So,
No, that's a good question. So I'm gonna say, if I had to give a one-word answer, I would say no. Chocolate hummus is not, because I'm concerned about what's in it. So
Yeah,
if it just had two ingredients, if it just had
the chickpeas.
chickpeas and cocoa powder, well, that would be healthy, but no one would actually buy it because they always add sugar and a bunch of stuff to these store made hummuses. So be careful, because if you read that ingredient list, I think it's going to be long, but in principle, it could be. So what a lot of people do is they love hummus. Who doesn't love hummus? I do. And, if it's, but really you want homemade hummus that you control. So you want to be the one choosing what oil goes in there.
okay.
And there's usually, sesame tahini in there, which can be perfectly healthy if not overused, and you want to control the salt, and then you can add in and mix in all sorts of herbs and seasonings. So hummus is a really good palette for all sorts of things. So most people like garlic, and I like dill, and chocolate hummus you can make your own. You want to be in
Yeah, with raw
And
cacao.
I'll give that a try, but it is kind of on an occasion dessert
Yes, it's
type
better
of
than
deal.
pudding, that's
But
for
I do
sure.
eat it with strawberries or blueberries or
Yes.
pineapple and do it
But
that way. And then the other question is snack items. So
yeah.
I am real guilty of doing Costco's Aussie Bites and Heavenly Humps.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with either of those?
Protein balls.
And protein
So
balls.
I'm I don't think I'm familiar with those, but I'm familiar with things that are probably similar. And so they sound like they're probably processed with a bunch of added ingredients and sugars, but I don't know for sure.
And
So
I
the
didn't bring him to the table with me, so I'd have to
the
go to
best
the kitchen to look
All
at it.
right, so the best snacks are, fruits and vegetables are terrific. And so, anytime you can munch on a raw carrot or a pepper, or, you
Dipped
know,
in hummus.
snow peas, and if you want to dip these things in salsa or homemade hummus, that's a winner. And then fruit, nature's candy, right? So apples are a really
Blueberries.
good deal.
Yeah.
What other, oranges are really good deals.
Great.
Bananas.
Yep.
Some people just have, are too sensitive to the sugar in banana because of diabetes,
I
but many people can enjoy, bananas. I always look for fruit that's less than $2 a pound. I hate to spend more than $2 a pound on any fruit. In July, I'll buy fresh cherries for, they're $4 a pound where I live. But there's plenty of fruits that you can find for under $2 a pound, and so those are my second choice when it comes to snacks.
A lot of when you're trying to deal with healthy eating, right? And snacking, especially understanding your habits is really important. If you are a snacker, to prepare ahead of time. For example, when we first started doing these sessions, Dr. Dansinger talked a lot about the different types of nuts. I even think we talked about them last week. And what we do is we go to a farmer's market or something where we could get the nuts in the raw, at lower cost than you can inside the supermarket. And they're usually fresher too. We'll get cashews, lots of almonds. Almonds to me are less expensive, walnuts as well. And we'll get a bunch of those and then some pumpkin seeds, some sunflower seeds, and we'll just sit once every 3 months. This sounds really good, but once every 3 months, and we'll get a cupful of each one. We'll mix them all up, and then we'll do a cupful in little baggies, little snack baggies. And we add some edamame, what do you call it? Wasabi peas, the ones that don't have the green food coloring in it. And you can also, one of my dad's dietitians talked about adding 70% cacao nibs,
Mm.
and just a few of them just to add the sweetness in there. So I don't know what you think about that, but it just makes it so it's handy right then and there that he could just take it whenever he wants it.
Great tip.
Okay. Is that helpful? Okay. She says yes. Any other questions coming in from the live studio audience? No, not at this time. So we'll go on to the ones that came in ahead of time. How can I reduce? This is a good question. You kind of touched a little bit, but how can I reduce salt without spending money on expensive specialty products? I'm imagining that they probably do a lot of packaged products.
The worst sources of salt are processed foods and fast foods. Some people get tempted into a fast food meal once a week or so. That's enough salt. I mean, that's a whole week's worth of salt right there. So most of these healthy foods that we were talking about, the fresh or frozen or canned fruits and vegetables, are going to be low in salt and affordable. Most of the salt people eat comes from processed foods that have lots of different ingredients, and I'm starchy foods, which can spike the blood sugar, often carry a lot of salt in them. For example, rice. So I'm not a big fan of rice because it turns to sugar, and especially white rice. And people don't eat white rice until it's salted. So either it's soy sauce or it's, salt is added. And it takes a lot of salt to flavor up these bland, starchy foods. And so starchy foods, I think, are the number one source of the salt in the people's diet, because bread is another one. There's a lot of salt in bread.
I didn't know that.
And anything made of flour is probably going to have either a lot of salt or sugar, because these starchy foods are bland on their own. And so people aren't eating just a potato, they're eating a French fry, or mashed potatoes or some other way. So getting back to vegetables that are fresh are $1 a pound, or fruits that are $2 a pound, that should be the majority of what people are eating. And then these healthy proteins that we talked about, whether it's fresh or frozen fish, or chicken that you buy, that you decide how much salt is going to go in there. So those are my initial thoughts about how to keep the salt down.
And I don't see any reason to buy rice anymore. I did try to buy wild rice, and I couldn't find anything but blends out there for wild rice. So I was a little frustrated. after you said, well, if you're going to have rice, get the wild rice, but there's always a blend. And that was really frustrating. So we have resorted to, again, frozen food section, and we have piles of all different cauliflowered rice in there from Jolly Green Giant. They make all different kinds. I love the cauliflower risotto. Cauliflower rice risotto. It's really good. Donna has a question. I don't know, Donna, do you want to ask your question yourself? You can go ahead and unmute, or do you want me to ask it?
Unmute. Can you hear
There
me
you
now?
are.
Okay.
Hi,
I wanted to ask about dried fruits, the ones that don't seem to have added sugars. Are they safe to eat?
Great question about dried fruits. So a lot of the dried fruit has sugar added. For example, cranberries pretty much always have sugar added.
Yeah.
A lot of dried fruits have sugar, so you're right to be cautious
Yeah.
about those. I'm
Right.
always
I like
thinking about
pineapple.
those.
I like pineapple, and I have found a pineapple that seems to have a very low
Yeah.
sugar, but it's hard to find dried fruits without sugar.
Yes, true. And then, I'll give you an example. So dried apricots, usually they don't add sugar, or raisins don't have sugar added, or there's plenty of fruits that are plenty sweet on their own and they don't need to add sugar to it. However, for people, especially for people with diabetes or pre-diabetes, um, dried dried fruits can need to be limited. So I would say a quarter cup would be a maximum serving for dried fruits. What I
Okay.
like to do, I love apricots. What I like to do actually is put the dried apricot in a little uh, water and overnight. And so I put it in a Tupperware in a little bit of water. Those apricots plump up really nicely overnight, and I enjoy them more like that. And you can do that with raisins or other dried fruits as well. So, in summary, let's keep it to a quarter cup a day. Look for the kinds without added sugar, and use them sparingly and also creatively. I think dried fruits are especially good as like condiments to jazz up other healthy foods. So some people put them in a salad or in a savory dish.
And we have another question coming in from Alan. Alan from Canada. Go ahead and unmute.
Oh, I did. Hi, thank you, Dr. Dansinger. I appreciate it. I cook a lot of meals now where I don't include rice or potatoes. I got that hint from Kym. She said just add an extra veggie in place of that, and that's what I do. But I do sometimes cook brown rice, and I use either a chicken or a vegetable broth to cook it in. So I don't add salt to it, although I don't worry a lot about salt because my body doesn't absorb it. And I cook potatoes, and probably half my dishes have rice or potatoes and half don't. Do you think that's a fairly healthy way to eat?
It can be. And so when it comes to rice, my first choice is cauliflower rice. My second choice is wild rice. My third choice is brown rice. And so for especially for people who are sensitive to diabetes or pre-diabetes, I generally recommend limit the portions of that, and then you mix in healthy things. When it comes to potatoes, I always recommend switching to mash, see if you can use turnips instead of potatoes. And so I love mashed potatoes. I hardly ever eat them though. Like on Thanksgiving, I'll enjoy some mashed potatoes. And
Yeah.
but turnips, I will roast turnips and I'll make mashed turnips, and I love them. And I've made like a shepherd's pie, and I'll put, instead of the mashed potatoes, I'll do a layer of mashed turnips. And
What a
there's
Okay.
great
recipes
idea.
online for that. The
Oh,
roasting them really brings out the sweetness in the turnips. So
Okay, I'll try that. I have to ask this question though. What is cauliflower rice? I've never heard of this.
It's cauliflower. It's shaped like rice. And so most people buy it frozen. It's possible to make it yourself with a knife, but I don't actually recommend it. It's pretty
No,
messy.
I tried
So,
that. No, that's no fun. No, we don't want to do that. It's a lot of work.
The reason we talk about things like cauliflower rice instead of regular rice, or turnips instead of potatoes, or cauliflower instead of potatoes, is because they have about a third as many carbohydrate grams as the potatoes. So look for and experiment with cauliflower rice. Most supermarkets have them either in the freezer section or in the refrigerator section. And so it sometimes you have to try a couple different brands before you nail it. But I like the frozen cauliflower rice. I like it with shrimp and peas.
Yeah, me too. Anytime you add the peas to it, it just makes it so much better. When you can stir fry in for a little extra protein, you can actually scramble an egg and then put the egg in there, a little bit of scrambled egg. You're almost making like fried rice, and you can get the peas and carrots along with it. I saute some onions in there, sometimes some garlic, and you can add some coconut aminos just to make it almost like an Asian style rice. But the cauliflower, so you know, there are some people that get the shredders, you know, a cheese shredder, and they'll shred the cauliflower. But after I shredded my finger, there was just not, I was not having it anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm all about the frozen. There are some places I know here in the States that you can get it in the fresh, but I always find that the frozen is you know, a little less expensive and it stays longer, and I always have it in the freezer. So, and you can do just so much more with it. You could even get, we talked in the beginning about the asparagus in the can, or you can get it in the freezer and you can chop it up and then you can add that to it as well. And that makes for a really nice meal. Really good questions. I'm so excited. I really like that everyone is so engaged. I love getting everyone's questions in and kind of taking it where we want to go with it, based on who's attending and what questions you have every week. We are getting some questions in now about smoothies. So I think that we should do a little bit more of a deep dive next week, along with whatever questions that everyone has. Of course, next Monday, hopefully everyone can join us. But I'm going to give Dr. Dansinger a little heads up that we're getting questions about smoothies. So we might have to get some recipes. And if any of you have really good recipes for smoothies, bring them next Monday. In the meantime, thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Dansinger, for your time. Make sure you visit his website at diabetesreversalpartners.com. If you're again in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York, Minnesota, or Florida, or Virginia, make sure that you check out his website. If you have Medicare or Medicare Advantage PPO plans, his services are actually covered under insurance, possibly a copay to go with that. But then you can have one-on-one attention every single week to help you with your dietary plan and living a better quality of life. Thanks everyone for joining us. Like and subscribe. Have a great week, and we'll see you